This is Straight Talk with Roger Hunt Unscripted. I am your host. Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of Straight Talk with Roger Hunt Unscripted. I am your host, Roger Hunt. Today we're going to talk about a couple of items that is very vital to our American society, not only here in St. Louis, but across the United States of America. I'm with an exciting organization, a very great organization here in St. Louis called CHADS, Coalition for Mental Health. And with me this afternoon is Marian McCord.
Correct.
Did I get that correct?
That's right.
Welcome to the show, and it's a pleasure to be here with you and everything. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you, Roger, for having me.
Well, a couple of things. Chad's been around for a little bit. Kind of tell us how you all got started, the history about it with this. I think it was dealing with suicide.
Yes.
One of your members suicide.
Yes. So CHADS is an acronym for Communities Healing Adolescent Depression and Suicide, and it's named in honor of my son, Chad,
Oh, wow.
who took his life when he was 18. And I'm a pediatric nurse by background, and ironically, I was in the business of saving children's lives. I was working at a pediatric hospital here in St. Louis. And I had no idea that my son was at home and in school fighting his own fatal illness. I didn't know a lot about mental health at that time, but I knew enough that when he told me he wanted to take his life, that he needed help. And we reached out for help, but unfortunately it was too little and too late. He died by suicide 6 months after he first told us that he was suicidal. And I learned a lot about mental health and the struggles, and I was also saddened because of the lack of resources, just the way that we were treated as a family. And I realized how big the problem is. And so from his death, we gave birth to Chad's Coalition.
Oh, wow. And how long ago was this?
Chad died in 2004, and
2004.
we incorporated the next year in 2005.
It's about 14 years. Oh my goodness. So it's interesting, and I just lost my son 3 months ago.
Oh, I am so
And
sorry.
he was murdered. So I mean, as a grieving parent, I certainly understand. I was like, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. You hear stories, and when things affect you, you get more so involved, more directly because it hits you personally.
Right.
And sometimes even as parents, we're going off the subject a little bit, but as parents, you look at what could I have done different.
Mm-hmm.
If I'd have been there more, if I could have, spent more time with them, and yet as parents, we have to, earn a living, work and things like that. And you talk to your kids, not that you don't, speak with them or things like that nature, but you try to reach out, and sometimes they just shut us out as parents as well. So probably your case and same as my case, because I keep saying, if I could have just been there, if I could have been with them that day a little bit longer, and not let them out, but then you can't watch them 24/7. You have to put them in the hands of the Lord, and a lot of times that's what we have to do. So my condolences to you and your family as well. 14 years, but sometimes it probably seems like it was just yesterday.
Yeah.
And you still have to, and not a day goes by that you probably don't think about him, I'm sure, especially with his name being, out like it is.
And you as well, Roger.
Well, thank you so much. And that's why I felt, another reason I just felt it more important to even do the show, to help other people that go through various situations and crises and things of that nature. And again, it's for helping. Part of what Straight Talk with Roger Hunt does is to bring awareness to various issues in our community, in society, and that's what we want to do, is to be able to help and be there for other people. So with organizations like yours, Chad's, it's great to get the word out and the message out to help someone else that may be dealing with some similar circumstances. Okay. With suicide, so you all have a program, SOS.
Yes.
And I was reading up on that, and can I tell me what that stands for again?
The SOS stands for Signs of Suicide.
Signs of Suicide. So go ahead, explain that to us there.
Okay.
I got some information, but I want you to go ahead. I'm gonna let you do the talking on this one.
Okay. Well, first of all, we think it's so important to help the kids start the conversation, because in this country, in this community, most people do not like to talk about depression, yet alone suicide. So that's what we try to do, is help the kids start the conversation. And we educate them, and there's a vignette of kids who have depression, some are suicidal. And we go through and we're looking for what are the warning signs of depression and suicide. And the program uses an acronym called ACT, A-C-T, for Acknowledge, Care, Tell. And it's an evidence-based program and has shown up to 64% reduction in suicide. Again, because like my son, he said, I thought I was the only one that felt this way. And they don't recognize it and see it as it's an illness or it's a disease. And that it's also one that could be treated. And we always tell the kids, if you have asthma or if you have diabetes or cancer, you don't pay any attention to the warning signs, you don't get treated, what's going to happen? They say it will get worse. I'm like, that's right. And that's what happens with depression. If we don't treat it, it will get worse. And so again, we got to start talking about it. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's not your fault. And it's something that can happen to anybody.
And it's interesting, with suicide, and I'll just be honest with you, I contemplated it myself. And so when it affects you personally, and it comes in many forms. When I lost a job, that I was like, you know what, my family would be better off without me. And knowing that wasn't the case, it would have been worse off without me. So I decided, I had the will to live.
Right.
Sometimes people can pull themselves out from it. And I didn't share with my family. No one knew. And I later told my wife and my kids what I was dealing with and struggling with. For a man to lose his job, and all of a sudden that income is gone, and it's like you're the breadwinner now. It's like you go from top to bottom, and you can't support your family. It is a unhumiliating feeling, So, but I had to kind of get a hold of myself, and I didn't. For me, fortunately, I didn't speak to anyone, honestly, because again, the shame that I had in dealing with the situation, I felt like I'm not going to let anybody know that I'm just going to do it, But then there's a song that came on that convicted me even more to fight the will to live.
Yeah.
So that's what kind of kept me in there, speaking to my family. I did finally, let my family know the situation. They embraced me and everything, and we got through it. And here we are today. So starting that was back in 2011.
Yeah.
That was back in 2011. So things can happen. People can change, situations can change as well.
Yes, and for all those kids that are contemplating suicide, at that time it just seems so overwhelming and that things never will get better. But you have a great inspirational story that if we can just, hang on and try to get through this and see what we can do to help.
And things can
everybody's
get better.
story is different.
Right, exactly, and things will get better. You just got to hold on and reach out. The important thing is to reach out to other people.
Yes.
Now, some of the signs of suicide, recognizing the sign, is there really a true sign? That, people may say, well, I'm going to take my life. But then some people say, oh, well, they're just acting out. They just want attention. Yeah. Do you get that?
Oh, yeah. Yes. And we say, well, if they're doing that, yes, they do need attention, somebody's attention.
There's a reason for them to do it.
Right.
And then, and I know at some point, you go to suicide prevention, the National Hotline for Suicide Prevention, organization like CHADS, like for example, and then there's many other organizations as well. But when it's ignored, if a person, I was on social media the other night, and a lady just basically said, I'm getting ready to do it, I'm going to take my life. Don't nobody try to contact me, and then all these people are reaching out to her, and yet she didn't want the help. Right. They get at that, they end like, this is it. I'm not going to do anything else. I just want to take my life and go. And the sad atrocity to that is there's people that's willing to help you, but then they have to be willing to get the help themselves.
Right.
So, and it's like I say, not only for teen suicide, adolescents, adults, and all of that. What we're going to do, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk some more with Marian regarding suicide and some of the causes and effects of that, and then how to get some help with that. We'll be right back. You're watching Straight Talk with Roger Hunt Unscripted. Stay tuned.
Join us here on Preach the Word Network on Fridays at 2 p.m. for Straight Talk with Roger Hunt Unscripted. Host Roger Hunt will explore the lives of others in many arenas of our society with discussions that will inform, inspire, encourage, and enlighten those who we interact with in our daily lives, featuring topics from the news, experts in their field, and great entertainment. Join us for Straight Talk with Roger Hunt Unscripted, Fridays at 2 p.m. on Preach the Word Network.
Welcome back to Straight Talk with Roger Hunt Unscripted. I am with Marian McCord of CHADS, Coalition for Mental Health, and we're having a conversation on suicide, a very serious topic. And again, if you need help, with suicide or contemplating suicide, nothing to be ashamed of. Seek help. There's a lot of organizations, not only here in St. Louis, but across the country. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline is there available for you. We're going to post the numbers and all the information at the end of the program, so you'll be able to get some help. And even during the program, if you just need to look up something, go to your internet. It's definitely just look up the National Suicide Prevention Hotline and get some help for a loved one or someone that you know is contemplating this horrible illness. Welcome back, Miriam. And we're having a great conversation, a very important subject matter. Now, what I'm looking at is just, we talked about the SOS and signs of suicide. What are some of the specific signs of suicide that you all encounter typically?
Well, since we work with kids, I'm going to talk about warning signs for kids.
Okay.
So, top of the list is anger, irritability, and rage. And that's important to know because when we think of depression with kids, we think of someone who's sad, who's crying. But for kids or youth, it's that anger, irritability. Even children, they don't know what's wrong. There could also be other warning signs such as maybe they are depressed, maybe they are crying. That isolation, they're going to pull back from their friends. Again, it's normal for kids to pull away from their parents, but it's not normal to start pulling away from your friends. Lack of motivation, don't want to do things they used to love to do. Sometimes the grades might start slipping. This is a disorder of the brain, and it's harder to concentrate. So sometimes the grades might start slipping. I could lose my appetite, or it could be the opposite, that I'm overeating because I'm trying to find that happiness in that bowl of ice cream. It could be that I'm turning to substance abuse. I'm trying to feel good. I'm trying to get my self-esteem up, and I'll turn to illegal drugs and alcohol. And sadly, unfortunately, a lot of kids are doing that. And I think it's also important to know that for all of us, we look different. That my symptoms may not be the same as what your symptoms are. And kids and adults, but kids especially, they just want to be like other kids. So they're going to do their best to mask it, to pretend that everything's okay. And just like my son, and that's what he did until his depression got too big and too bad that he can no longer hide it behind his mask. Because kids want to be like other kids, so they're going to try to hide it.
So with that being said, if someone calls into your office, one of your staffers get a phone call, it's like, I'm contemplating suicide, what's the first action or response? What do you all do typically? Whether it's a phone call or that's happened to you, you go home and someone tells you that they're suicidal, that you basically need to triage. You need to figure out how much are they thinking about it. So if it was a phone call, is there anybody with you? If you're with them, how long have you been thinking about this? Do you know how you're going to do it, when you're going to do it, where you're going to do it? The more detail that you can give me and tells me, the higher your risk is that you're going to complete suicide. If I was talking to you on the phone and I couldn't place where you were, I would maybe call 911 to get somebody out to your house because, time is of the essence. If I was with you and you told me that you were having these thoughts and you were at a pretty high risk, I wouldn't leave you alone because it only takes a second. Yeah, for me it was, because I traveled a lot, so my thought process was to drive over a cliff and just end it, make it instantly, and then be painless. And again, the song, it was a gospel song that came in that said was what saved me. And I thought about it, I said, no, I can't do that. I can't do that to my family. And then that's a sin that I couldn't be forgiven for, so, and I thought about it and just started praying and asking God to help me and seeking the Lord even more. Right. And so, yeah, it's interesting because then I also had someone call me, so then I'm able to help someone, so then someone called, and I think sometimes the Lord uses us even through storms to help people through their storms. And I was able to talk this individual down from suicide, and they actually ended up getting counseling. They ended up getting counseling, getting some help. There was some self-esteem issues. There was a lot of self-esteem issues. I panicked to the point that I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And I said, God, why are you having this person call me And then he reminded me, he said, did I not bring you through this?
Yes.
So now I need you to help this child. This is my child as well. And so as long and tedious as the process was to get that person, like you said, they called me, and I said, why are you calling me? And I almost hit the point, like, but just if you're going to take your life, just do it. But that's the thing that you don't want to do, because you just never know how close they are to doing it.
Right.
You know, so that person ended, I called the National Suicide Hotline here in St. Louis. I ended up reaching out to the parent. The parent had no idea. The parent had no idea what was going on. They didn't feel love anymore. They felt, you know, there was another sibling involved, but they felt as though they weren't the one. They weren't the youngest child, so they felt kind of left out, shunned out. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and talking to the individual and explaining to the individual, your parents love you. You are loved. And maybe they don't show it like they used to because they got another younger sibling there, you know, and the jealousy sets in.
Right.
That's even with siblings, and I think sometimes we as parents, you know, sometimes we forget that. Not that we love all of them the same and unconditionally, but I think sometimes we overlook that, you know, we don't treat them any different because they're our children. And that person ended up getting some help. They're still getting counseling to this day, but that's the key. The key is to seek help and to get help. Yes. Before it is too late.
Right, absolutely.
Now, who is it that mostly calls in? Is it the parent that calls in, or is it the individual themselves?
For us, it's the parent, because we have to be careful in terms of dealing with minors.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it's the parents. And once in a while, we'll have kids call in. But we have to get to the parent, because we can't work with the child unless we have parental permission.
Okay. So in that first line of defense again, kind of go back over that again with us. First line of defense and dealing with the person that calls in, or
listen to them and try to find out, you know, how long have you been thinking about this? When are you going to do it? Where are you going to do it? You can also talk to them once you have those details about, you know, what are some reasons you have for living. And just to have that conversation and to really listen what's going on. It's not a time for you to lecture. Don't lecture me. I'm hurting and I'm broken, and I need someone who really cares about me. So, and why the three classic high-risk factors for someone who is suicidal are someone who feels hopeless, who feels helpless, and burdensome. And so, as in my son's case, he said, even though he was gifted in so many ways, he said, Mom, I have nothing to give this world. He couldn't see his gifts that he had. And that hopelessness, nobody's ever going to be able to fix me, and I'm bringing the world down.
wow.
And that's that cycle of and that's the depression talking. So, and again, I know it's hard for people who don't have depression, like, come on, Roger, couldn't you just see about the good things that you loved? And that moment you can't. And that's what makes me different when I have depression, is my brain is different than someone who doesn't have depression. And I can't hear the good things that I do, but if there's maybe I didn't do something right or perfect, that's what I can hang on to. Right. I'm just messed up. And that's just the cycle of depression.
Going on.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important to get help, talk to somebody, to a mental health professional. And some of us need medication, and that's okay, because some of us have diabetes and we need insulin.
Right.
That's okay.
It's going to help. It's going to help make the situation better.
Yeah, and there's so many other things that we can do to help our depression. It doesn't have to be medication or therapy, although those are certainly very good things. But you talk about your spiritual life and what that meant to you. To get exercise. Am I getting enough sleep? Am I eating right? Am I taking time for myself? So there's all of those things that we know we should be doing.
Right.
And they're important.
Oh my God, you hit on so many points, even with what I'm dealing with right now and everything, and it's just the exercising, the mental stress detox and relief of the pressures of everyday life, family, finding that happy medium, that takes you to wherever you need to be at, but at a good safe spot, safe place in your mind, wow. There's another program that you guys have, it's called EYES, Every Year, Every Student.
Yes.
That I think is awesome.
Yes.
Want to tell us about that one?
Yeah, well, with that SOS program, it's really, there's a middle school and a high school, and some of the faculty love the program so much, they say, hey, would you come in and do it next year? We say, oh, sure. So we go in the next year, we talk to those kids again, they're like, we've seen this before. And so, and then they turn their ears off. So then we came up with eyes, every year, every student, so that we can go back every year, and the presentation is a little bit different. We'll review what are the warning signs of suicide, what should you do? And so we're watering the seeds that we planted with the program. And then we pick out a hot topic for that particular age group. For 6th grade, I think it's bullying, 7th grade it's peer pressure, and 8th grade it's self-injury. And it doesn't have to be in those orders. Sometimes schools say, well, we're really having problems with self-injury with our 7th graders. So then we'll go in, and there's a lot of engagement from the kids. Again, we want that conversation happening because we don't like to talk about those things. But they're still happening.
They're still happening every day. And now we're going to move into another subject that she alluded to, was the bullying aspect that a lot of our young people face, and not only young people, but then the adults, even in the workplace bullying. There's also sorts of type of bullying issues, but we're going to specifically talk about the adolescents and the teens, more so them. So tell us, Marian, what is bullying? What do you consider bullying to be?
Bullying is an imbalance of power, and that they're hurting people repeatedly. It's more than once or twice a month, but it's that imbalance of power in hurting someone.
Okay, so we know there's several forms of bullying. What is the most form that you all see amongst the teens that you all deal with, that you all have to encounter?
Well, this cyberbullying is getting out of control, and it's so hard to control it. These kids with the internet and their phones, they have weapons of mass destruction in their hands, and they have access to them 24/7. And I don't have to be in front of you. I don't have to have the guts to bully someone. I can do behind my phone and no one will ever know. And so...
and that goes back to, that leads to the other issue of the suicide, because wasn't there an adult that did some bullying of a teenage, and that person ended up taking their life? And so it ended up being a twofold situation, that an adult, it wasn't the sense of a teenager, but it was an adult that cyberbullying that caused the death of a teenager. And so it's issues and situations of that nature, and you're right, weapons of mass destruction in your hand with the use of a cell phone. You have the Facebook, the Instagram, the Twitter, all those things that come across, and then not only with the peer pressure of everything, and people seeing that, and the humiliation of all that our youth gets exposed to, and you say, well, why don't you just shut it off? And see, I think sometimes we as people, we think that it's just easy to turn something off, and it's not. Because once I get that image and I see that, now it's embedded in me.
Right.
No one likes you, no one loves you.
Right. And it went to a lot of people.
Yeah. And everybody sees that, so then when I go back to school, everybody's looking at me. So now you have that humiliation. So you all get calls about that as well, or similar to the suicide?
Bullying, they're finding, is a form of trauma, and there's so much emphasis now on trauma-informed care. Children that grow up in violence, that it affects their behaviors, it changes their brain, whether they were sexually abused, physically abused, or just so violence. And so now bullying, they're realizing, can be just as damaging to a child or to a teenager as sexual and physical and verbal abuse. It can cause some pretty deep scars that can be life-changing.
Now, I got to tell the story, because I was bullied 6th grade, and I was the captain of a patrol team. And these two guys, they said, well, you're the goody two-shoe, you make the A's and the B's, and at some point, students feel like, well, you should be making good grades. You should be like us. Well, no, I can't be like you. I got to be my own unique person. Right. And because I was captain of the boys' patrol, and because I made good grades, I was taunted at. So they picked a fight with me. So of course, what do? You're either going to stand there and get beat up, or you're going to fight back. Well, back then, I had to fight back. Because my brothers were boxers. So I came from a boxing family background. So I had to fight. I had to defend myself. But after I did that, honestly enough, they stopped bothering me. I was never bullied. They never bothered me again.
That's good.
And so you find, and I look back on that experience, I was like, wow, I mean, had I not stood up for myself, had I not, taken the time to say, defend myself, because I'm not going to let you be two guys on one. And these are pretty big guys,
Yeah.
And I was the skinny, scrawny guy, I was like, no, I'm going to fight back. I got to fight back,
Yeah.
And sometimes kids feel like they don't have that option or that choice because they're not a fighter. They don't have the fight in them.
Right.
So then they do go home, revert to the suicidal types of things, or the depression, or they withdraw from society, withdraw from the friends in the school. So then here come the other issues started to accumulate.
Right.
And then they don't talk to the parents about it because, again, they're feeling ashamed because I can't tell my dad that I'm being picked on.
Right.
Because dad's going to say, well, you better stand up for yourself. You better get in there. What happens, and I think sometimes I've heard situations where the schools, the parents may report it to the school, but then the schools, sometimes they ignore it or don't take it serious enough.
Yeah, unfortunately that happens sometimes. And it's our message to those parents and to the parents to advocate for their child. Nobody deserves to be bullied because it has such a damaging effect. And I know that sometimes teachers are busy and schools are busy and they turn their back to it too often. And so that's why it's just important that all teachers, faculties, administrators realize how damaging bullying is and what can you do in your school to change that culture so that bullying doesn't happen. And again, teaching kids, because in that situation, like for you, you are lucky in that you were able to fight back. But let's say we talk about depression. I have depression. I'm already feeling bad about myself, and now you're picking on me, and you're just, so I'm only going to go deeper and deeper. So we try to teach kids what to do when someone sees someone bully another child, and how do you think it feels to be in your shoes, to be picked on? And so giving the kids the tools to say, it's to tell a teacher, to tell an adult. Because that's the big message with bullying, because it's an imbalance of power. Don't put it on another student to try to fix it, but bring in an adult because of that imbalance of power.
Tell us, if people want to reach out to you, before we forget to that, you guys, how are you funded? First of all, how are you funded?
We're funded through tax-based initiatives such as the Children's Service Fund or St. Charles CCRB. We also have grants. We write proposals to different funders that will give us grant money. We also have major donors and minor donors that we do take donations. Here at CHADS, I know how difficult and the barriers that are out there for a child to reach out for help. And one of those barriers is money. So that's why we have the different funds and the different grants in place, because I never want anybody to say, but I can't afford to come to you. So we do have a $25 copay for all the kids that we see. However, if we have a family who said, you know what, I can't come because then I can't buy my groceries, that clinician has a right to waive that fee so that we see that child at no cost to that family, and then we'll put it to a grant or from a major donor. Because everybody deserves to be able to have treatment.
So there's an opportunity for you to get involved with a great organization that's helping our young people with the suicide prevention, and then also with the anti-bullying campaign that's going on, so you can get involved. One of the ways that you can reach out to CHADS is by contacting them at 314-952-2046, or you can send info at chadscoalition.org. Marian, it's been a great pleasure having you on the show. You've been watching Straight Talk with Roger Hunt Unscripted. I am your host, Roger Hunt.